This why are people acting so weird thing. First of all, Olga Kazan wrote a piece over at theatlantic.com about this a week or three ago, and started out by saying, Will Smith smacking Chris Rock at the Oscars, a guy arrested punching a gate agent at the Atlanta airport, people throwing tantrums while skiing. Yes, this had to do with refusing to comply with a mask mandate. This guy, got all upset and on the ski lifts, and this is just strange stuff. Disorderly, rude, unhinged conduct. People accusing each other of all kinds of weird and strange things. Americans driving more recklessly. 2021 saw the highest number of unruly passenger incidents ever for the FAA. We're seeing car crashes and pedestrian deaths at higher rates than in the past. Healthcare workers are talking about their patients behaving more violently. In Missouri, some of the hospitals had to outfit nurses with panic buttons because of the uptick in disruptive behavior. In 2020, the U.S. murder rate rose by nearly a third, the biggest increase on record, and then rose again last year, 2021. Car thefts are up. School board meetings have melted down. So Olga Kazan asks over at theatlantic.com, what on earth is happening? And proposes a few of the thoughts on what's actually going on. Number one, we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. For one thing, for 4 years, we had a neo-fascist grifter in the White House who threatened nuclear war with North Korea, a nuclear-armed country. It made a few people a little nervous, and justifiably so. Plus, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost, almost 1 million Americans lost a loved one, a family member. Well, actually, more than 1 million. We lost almost 1 million. It's going to hit 1 million in the next month or so. 1 million people. That's tens of millions of people who know somebody or loved somebody that they have lost. And then there's these provocations. You've got staff shortages, long waits for help, mask mandates, people in their mood. Also, rudeness can be contagious. I think this is an important point that Olga is pointing out over on this Atlantic piece. She asked this psychology professor at the University of Wisconsin, who noted people who witness rudeness are 3 times less likely to help someone else. People are picking up on rudeness from social media. In fact, it was interesting. Yesterday we were watching France 24 about the French elections. And they were just asking people on the street, what do you think about what's going on? And one of them said, social media, particularly Facebook and Twitter, have just been pounding Macron and elevating Marine Le Pen. And of course, it's bots. In fact, a lot of it appears to be Russian bots that are trying to promote a right-wing candidate in France. Because Marine Le Pen in the past has said, let's get out of NATO. So this is not just happening in the United States. Also, people in America during the pandemic were drinking more. They were doing more drugs. Americans have been drinking 14% more than before the pandemic. We're also buying a lot more guns. We bought something like 30 million more guns in 2020, which spiked the gun murder rate. And then we bought another, more guns in 2021, another spike in the gun murder rate. Kids stopped going to school. Their parents stopped going to work. So we weren't having contact with other people. We weren't having these social interactions. People stopped going to church. And all of this social isolation kind of brings out the worst in all of us. And then here comes Jerry Springer. He was on, my friend and colleague Dino Badala's show here on Sirius XM. He said that his talk show, he believes, and he's kind of owning this. He's feeling guilty about this, Jerry Springer, former mayor of Cleveland, I think it was. But, he did this talk show where he would bring on people who would throw chairs at each other and yell and scream and all this kind of stuff. And he told Dean, he said, the behavior of some of the people on the show is exactly Donald Trump. He said, however, the people on my show, they had enough sense not to run for president. He talks about what made Trump unique. He said, the only thing that separates Trump from the guests on my show, this is Jerry Springer talking to Dino Badala on Sirius XM. He said, the only thing that separates Trump from the guests on my show is the fact that he had this delusion that he knew how to run the world or run the country, when in fact he knows nothing about how to run a country. And we paid the price for that. It's interesting. In 2018, and he also gets into the tax cuts. He says, what an absurdity. What are you giving people like me a tax cut? If you're willing, because a wealthy person gets a couple more dollars in a paycheck, if you're willing to sell the soul of America for a couple more bucks, then don't ever ask a young man or woman to fight and die for this country, because you don't believe in it. Excuse me, you don't believe in this country.